Okay, so this is the annual Does the NRL have a recreational drug use issue video. We've obviously had some high profile incidents this season. Most recently, obviously, Ezra Mam and Josh Adokar in the last couple of weeks. Josh Adokar obviously getting sacked by the Bulldogs. Ezra Mam, we're waiting to see what the NRL Integrity Unit does, Queensland State Police, and if they bring charges, and what the Broncos ultimately decide to do with Ezra Mam. Obviously, the big one this season was Latrell Mitchell. Another one that went under the radar was Braden Trindle, although very similar to Adokar. But that went under the radar a little bit. I think the Sharks internally were disciplining him. It did impact the Sharks season a little bit when he was suspended. And so that's 4 players. Now, if you were to take 100 people off the street and randomly drugs test them, around 18 to 25, maybe 30 may come back with traces of recreational drugs, legal or illegal, in their system. So if you look at a league that's got over about 520 players in the elite squads of the 17 teams, my maths isn't great, I'm approximating, but 10 teams is 300, 15 is 450, another 2 is 60, so that's 510. Add on a few other players here. About 510 to 520 players who will be playing in the NRL next season. Out of that, you're looking at around 80 to 100 players potentially could be using recreational drugs. And that's just as a rough estimate. It could be less, it could be more. Now, are we on the same level of misbehaviour as 2017, 2018? No. Is there clearly an issue? Yes. Let's not kid ourselves. There is an issue here. And it's a regular thing that keeps coming up. Every so often, a player will, have a positive roadside test in the case of Adokar or Ezra Mam or Braden Trindle, or in Latrell Mitchell's case, be an absolute wally and do it in front of people with camera phones, who then post it on the internet. And it wasn't a good look because he was meant to be at a regional coaching clinic that the NRL encourage players to do when they are either out injured or suspended or whatever it may be, as part of their community program. And it didn't help that Latrell Mitchell has had a fair few off-field incidents. Didn't help that Adokar's had a fair few off-field incidents in his career. Some of them I didn't even realise he had when he was an SG ball player, but he bounced around the Sydney clubs before ending up at the Melbourne Storm. And obviously the meeting that the Bulldogs had with their board and the coaching setup has decided that they don't want that kind of culture in their club. Now, people will say with the Bulldogs, coughs hard. And that was some very serious allegations against Bulldogs players 20 years ago. But, I think a quick solution to this potential problem is more in-season testing and stronger punishments, because players keep doing it. And these are high-profile players. And this is coming at a time when the league is trying to grow internationally and also grow domestically in Australia and New Zealand with the coming 18th team expansion in the next couple of years. They're trying to win the ratings battle on TV and online with the AFL. So they're trying to win the domestic market, and they're also trying to grow the game internationally. The Vegas series as an example, these internationals that we're currently having at the end of the season, as another example with the Pacific Challenge. And so it is a very relevant issue. Now, a lot has happened since 2018 in regards to the governance of the game. Todd Greenberg was the NRL CEO back in 2018 when the no fault, no stand down policy was brought in. But Peter V'landys, who's very hands-on as the ARL boss, and Andrew Abdo have decided to keep the no fault, no stand down policy for all its flaws. And there are some flaws to that policy. Of course, the Jack DeBellin saga dragged on with the no fault, no stand down policy. He's not the only player who's been stood down because of that policy, but that was a very high profile, lengthy time out of the game that DeBellin had. We also had Barbecue Gate. Barbecue Gate, again, a lot of alcohol, a lot of rule breaking and bad culture. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what punishments, like Ezra Mann, for example, what he receives, and who ends up signing Adokar, and how they work out his suspension as well. It's also going to be interesting if next season any more players decide to get caught and be silly, because there's clearly the majority of players are clearly behaving themselves, being very professional, and being all above board and good role models, and good community role models, and generally good culture at clubs. And then we are having this percentage, of which 4 players have obviously fallen afoul this season, who are clearly using or abusing recreational drugs. Now, this is a societal problem. Australia has the highest cocaine usage in the world per capita. The UK is second. Of course, we've had some rugby league players over here in the UK in recent years also get caught using recreational drugs. And Zach Hardacre keeps springing to mind because he regularly does it. And regularly gets caught. And I have no sympathy for him, given the amount of chances Zach Hardacre's had throughout his career. And so it is a known societal issue. It's not just cocaine, it's crystal meth, it's MDMA, it's cannabis, any number of illicit substances. Speed. And so there is clearly a proportion of players that statistically will be. Now, whether that is as high or there's a bit of leeways, again, you just have to look at studies conducted by various research facilities to go, if you get 100 people and test them, around 20, give or take 5 either way, will come back with a positive test. So if you've got a playing group of around 520 players, 20% of that is around anywhere between 80 and 120. Is it as high as 120? No. Is it as low as 80? Maybe. Could it be lower? Yes. Could it be higher? Absolutely. And these are not the first players in the last few years to have the recreational drug use exposed, but they weren't caught by in-competition testing. So there is a lot of question marks over the culture in clubland. There's a lot of question marks over how the clubs are educating and looking after their players. There's also a proportion of self-responsibility as well, and taking responsibility for your own actions. These are grown men, these are adults. And so there's a lot of parts at play here, but I think there needs to be tougher punishments as well. And we can talk about education as much as we want, and we can discuss other sports and other leagues, drug policies when it comes to recreational drug use and rehabilitation, and are they working, are they not working? But it's clearly still an issue. And it will be. The AFL's had its own issues with its own drug policy this year, which have been very high profile and well discussed. So this is not the only sport, not the only league where there's question marks over the drug use of players and its drug policy. Are we on the same level of 2017, 2018? I don't think so. Is there still an issue all these years later? Yes. So we'll see what happens in the off-season. We'll see what discussions the RLPA have, but there's got to be a change. The RLPA were very, very, very resistant to having drugs testing in competition and out of competition for players. That position, I think, is going to be challenged because fans are the ones who are like, well, this damages the image of the game. You want to encourage as many young people to be active in sport as possible, and a lot of them like rugby league. And if you're a parent or you're a guardian or you're an older sibling and you're taking your younger brother or your son or your daughter or whatever it is to watch games and also to play, that may put you off encouraging them to continue watching and playing the sport. If the idols, the superstars they're watching are misbehaving like this. And there is a societal problem with recreational drug use. And Australia, unfortunately, does have the highest cocaine use in the world. The UK is second. I think Canada's third. So some of the biggest sporting nations in the world, which are known for their national sports, so Canada is ice hockey, Australia's rugby league and Aussie rules and cricket. England's obviously every bloody sport you can think of, or the UK is because we invented most of them. But at the same time, there's a high percentage of the population recreationally abusing drugs, and that will also translate into the athletes themselves. So sport can be a vehicle for societal change, but I do think there are still issues at play within the NRL that it's not dealing with properly. The drug policy does need change, and the RLPA needs to basically say, okay, we're not going to keep protecting the players. The players need to take some more adult responsibility for their actions and also the consequences of their actions, because this is coming at a time when the NRL is trying to grow its national and international image, trying to get new viewers, fans, sponsors, TV deals signed, and these negative headlines do damage the reputation of the sport. But there we go, that's my view on it. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.